Russell Harmon adjusted his tie as the family photographer directed them into position. The annual Harmon family portrait, a 15-year tradition that had once symbolized stability and happiness, now felt like an elaborate charade. At 52, Russell had Bill Harmon's security systems from nothing into a regional powerhouse. His company protected half the homes in 3 counties, but he couldn't protect what mattered most. "A little closer together, please," the photographer called. "Mrs. Harmon, could you move in toward your husband?" Vanessa Harmon, 48, reluctantly shifted closer to Russell, careful not to actually touch him. Their 17-year-old daughter, Heather, stood on Vanessa's other side, her eyes fixed on her phone. The distance between them wasn't new. It had been growing for months, perhaps years, though Russell had tried to ignore it, focusing instead on providing for his family. The 3-story colonial house, the luxury cars, the expensive private school for Heather, the country club membership Vanessa had insisted upon. He'd given them everything, asking only for loyalty in return. That was before he discovered the text messages on Vanessa's phone 6 weeks ago, before he'd hired Frank Donati, his former employee and now private investigator, to follow her, before he'd learned about Garrett Miller, the 45-year-old tennis instructor at their country club who had been sleeping with his wife for the past year. Everyone smiled, the photographer called cheerfully. As Russell forced a smile, he saw Heather looking down at her phone, thumbs flying across the screen. A moment later, his own phone vibrated in his pocket. Instinctively, he reached for it. "Dad, seriously?" Heather rolled her eyes. "Can you not check your phone for 5 minutes?" "Sorry," Russell muttered, but he glanced at the screen anyway. What he saw made his blood run cold. A text from Heather. "You're such a loser. Mom should have left you years ago for someone good." Russell looked up at his daughter, who was smirking at him. He showed the screen to Vanessa, who glanced at it, and then, to his disbelief, high-fived Heather. "She's right." "You know," Vanessa said with a cruel smile, "I settled for less." The photographer, oblivious to the drama unfolding, continued snapping photos. "Great energy, folks. Just a few more." Russell felt something break inside him. Not his heart, which had been breaking slowly for months, but the last thread of restraint. With steady hands, he removed his house keys from his pocket and placed them on the small table next to him. "What are you doing?" Vanessa asked, her smile faltering. "Well, I should have done a long time ago," Russell replied quietly. Then he turned and walked away, ignoring the photographer's confused protests and Vanessa's sudden calls for him to come back. In his car, Russell pulled out his second phone, the one neither Vanessa nor Heather knew about, and made a call. "Lydia, it's time. Execute Plan A." 3 hours later, in a modest suite at the Oak Ridge Hotel, Russell was reviewing documents when his primary phone began ringing incessantly. Vanessa, then Heather, then Vanessa again. He silenced it after the 7th call and continued his work. By morning, the missed calls had reached 73. Lydia Torres arrived at the Harmon residence at precisely 8 a.m., her navy suit as crisp as her demeanor. The family lawyer for 15 years, she'd been the only person besides Frank who knew what Russell had discovered and what he had planned. Vanessa answered the door in a silk robe, her face pale from a sleepless night. "Lydia, what are you doing here? Is Russell with you?" "May I come in?" Lydia asked professionally. "We have matters to discuss." Inside, Heather sat at the kitchen island, still in her pajamas, scrolling through her phone. She barely looked up when Lydia entered. "Where's my husband?" Vanessa demanded once they were seated in the living room. "Mr. Harmon is safe and has retained my services for what's to come," Lydia replied, opening her briefcase. "Before we proceed, I should inform you that this conversation is being legally recorded." "Recorded? What the hell is going on?" Vanessa's voice rose. 3 months ago, Mr. Harmon asked me to prepare contingency plans for divorce. 1 month ago, he instructed me to finalize those plans." Lydia removed a thick folder from a briefcase. "As of 6 p.m. yesterday, all joint accounts have been frozen, and Mr. Harmon has filed for divorce on grounds of adultery." The color drained from Vanessa's face. "This is ridiculous. He can't just—" "He can and has," Lydia interrupted. "Furthermore, he has compiled extensive evidence of your affair with Garrett Miller, including photographs, video surveillance, and hotel receipts spanning the past year. Heather's head snapped up. "Mom? What's she talking about?" Vanessa shot a venomous look at her daughter. "Nothing. Go to your room." "Actually," Lydia continued, "Heather should stay. This concerns her, too." The lawyer produced another document. "Mr. Harmon has also filed a petition regarding parental alienation with evidence demonstrating your systematic efforts to turn your daughter against him, including encouraging hostile and abusive communications." Heather's phone slipped from her fingers. "What does that mean?" "It means," Lydia explained coolly, "that the court will review evidence, including text messages, recorded conversations, and witness statements indicating that your mother deliberately poisoned your relationship with your father." "That's insane," Vanessa shouted. "Russell couldn't possibly have. The smart home security system he designed?" Lydia raised an eyebrow. "The one installed throughout this house with microphones and cameras in every room except the bathrooms. The system has been recording for the past 6 months. That system." The room fell silent as realization dawned on both Vanessa and Heather. "That's illegal," Vanessa whispered. "Not in a home owned solely by Mr. Harmon, which this is, and not when the recordings were triggered by security protocols he programmed. The system activated whenever certain phrases were spoken, phrases like Garrett, your father, and interestingly, loser." Lydia turned to Heather. "Did you know that your mother has been systematically liquidating your college fund to pay for extended vacations with Mr. Miller? Or that she planned to leave your father once he graduated, taking half his assets?" Heather looked at her mother in horror. "Is that true?" "Additionally," Lydia continued, "Mr. Miller has been recording your intimate encounters, Mrs. Harmon. Russell found quite an extensive collection when he accessed Garrett's cloud storage." "He did what?" Vanessa's voice was barely audible. "Mr. Miller has been sharing these recordings with friends," Lydia said. "Mr. Harmon discovered this during his investigation. He's prepared to keep this private if you cooperate with his terms." As Lydia outlined the divorce terms, Vanessa would receive a modest settlement, but no alimony. The house would be sold, and Russell would maintain primary financial control until Heather turned 21. Vanessa's face cycled through shock, rage, and finally defeat. "This is blackmail," she hissed. "This is consequences," Lydia corrected. "And we haven't even discussed Mr. Miller yet." Meanwhile, across town, Russell sat across from Garrett Miller in the private room of a downtown cafe. "I don't understand why you wanted to meet," Garrett said nervously. "If this is about Vanessa, it's about the $850,000 you've embezzled from the country club over the past 3 years," Russell said calmly. Garrett's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. "What are you talking about? The irregular payments from member accounts? The falsified equipment purchases? The ghost employees on payroll?" Russell slid a folder across the table. "I've been on the club's finance committee for 5 years." "Garrett, did Vanessa not mention that?" "This is a misunderstanding," Garrett stammered. "Is it?" Russell opened his laptop and turned it toward Garrett. "These are security camera feeds from the club's accounting office, showing you accessing financial records after hours. And here's your offshore account and the payments. Interesting that the deposits match the missing funds exactly." Garrett's face drained of color. "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear from our lives," Russell said. "Leave the state. Never contact Vanessa or anyone in my family again. The evidence goes to the police if you don't." "You can't do this," Garrett whispered. "I already have," Russell replied. "Oh, and those videos you took of my wife. Delete them, all copies, or they'll be the least of your concerns." As Russell left the cafe, his phone rang. It was Frank. "It's done," Frank said. "Vanessa tried calling Miller 16 times, but his phone seems to be off. And you were right. She went straight to the bank after Lydia left, found the accounts frozen, just like you said she would, and the safe deposit box emptied last week as you instructed. All the cash, the emergency passports, the jewelry, it's all in secure storage now." Russell nodded to himself. "What about Heather?" Frank's voice softened. "She called her friend Natalie, said her mom had been lying to her about everything. She's pretty torn up." "Keep eyes on the house," Russell said. "Phase 2 begins tomorrow." 3 days passed with no word from Russell. Vanessa's attorney advised her to accept the terms. They were harsh, but fighting would only expose her affair and financial manipulations publicly. She reluctantly agreed, but insisted on a face-to-face meeting with Russell. They met at Lydia's office with both attorneys present. Vanessa had aged years in just days, her designer clothes hanging loosely on her frame. "You've made your point," she said bitterly. "You win." "This was never a game," Russell replied. "But you're right about one thing. I do win." He slid a final document across the table. "Sign this, and we're done." Vanessa scanned it, then looked up in disbelief. "You want me to relinquish my parental rights?" "Absolutely not. Heather is 17. In 8 months, she'll be legally able to make her own decisions," Russell said. "This simply formalizes what's already happened. She doesn't want to live with you. You've manipulated her." Actually, a voice came from the doorway. He didn't have to. Heather stood there, flanked by Frank. Her eyes were red but resolute. "I found the videos, Mom," she said quietly. "The ones of you and Garrett talking about Dad, laughing about how stupid he was, planning how to take his money." She swallowed hard. "I also found a receipt for my college fund withdrawal. The money you said was for my future. You spent on a villa rental in Greece for you and Garrett." Vanessa paled. "Heather, you don't understand. Understand perfectly." Heather cut her off. "Dad never said a bad word about you to me. Not once. But you spent years telling me he was a loser, that he didn't really love us, that he only cared about his business." Her voice broke. "You made me hate my own father." Russell hadn't known Heather would be there. Frank must have arranged it, but he remained impassive as his daughter continued. "I'm staying with Dad," she said firmly. "And when I turn 18, I never want to see you again." Vanessa's hands trembled as she signed the papers. As they left the building, Russell received a text from an unknown number. "You've destroyed my life. This isn't over. Garrett Miller making one last threat." Russell smiled slightly. "Actually, it is." That evening, as Russell and Heather ate takeout in his new apartment, breaking news flashed across the TV. Garrett Miller had been arrested for embezzlement. The report mentioned anonymous tips to both the police and the IRS, along with comprehensive financial records showing years of theft. "Did you do that?" Heather asked softly. Russell shrugged. "Actions have consequences." 3 months later, Russell stood in his newly renovated office at Harmon Security Systems. The company had expanded, acquiring 2 competitors whose owners had mysteriously decided to sell after discovering their own security systems had been compromised. Frank knocked on the door. "Just got word. Vanessa's condo went into foreclosure. Apparently, Garrett's legal fees drained their resources." "Not her concern," Russell said coolly. "What about the new house? Closing next week. Heather loves it." As Frank left, Russell's phone buzzed with a text from Heather. "Scholarship interview went great. Professor said my essay on rebuilding trust was the best she'd read. Love you, Dad." Russell smiled, genuinely this time. The family portrait from that fateful day sat on his desk, now modified. Where Vanessa had stood was now empty space, professionally edited out. Just father and daughter remained. He'd lost a wife, but regained a daughter. More importantly, he'd reclaimed his dignity. Russell Harmon had walked away that day not as a loser, but as a man who knew his worth and exactly how to collect what was owed to him. Some called it ruthless. He called it justice. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.